Hi foliage family, my name's Romani from Mother of Leafy Boys, and as you could read by the title, we are going to do the part 2 to my full house plant tour. This section today is going to go through all of the plants in my living room space and both of my front and back veranda plants as well. So if you missed part 1, please go back and watch that one. It had majority of my plants in it, and it went through my plant room and the adjoining guest room. Part 3 still to come will be the downstairs plants, and that will all be one video as well. I wanted to talk to the conditions that these plants are also living in. So I've had a couple of questions about the humidity, and I actually Googled it the other day. I have no device that tells me what the humidity is in any of my rooms, so I can only go off what the average humidity is on any given day. On average in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, which is where I live, the humidity gets around 50% in winter and 75% in summer. That's just like the average to give you an idea. Now, because I also live in a house that is completely stuffed to the brim with plants, obviously that humidity would probably be a little bit higher. So that just gives you a general idea of my humidity. So if I talk about my plants living in like room humidity, please don't compare that to your home humidity if you're not living in Brisbane, Queensland. It is a very different home environment, and I'm very lucky to have these kind of conditions. Now, after speaking to a couple of people as well, I am going to invest in something that reads my general humidity, because I would like to be able to give you guys a better idea of the conditions the plants are in if you're hoping to replicate that. The window behind me is a east facing window, so that means it gets some bright morning light. That's where the sun rises from and sets behind the camera. So it gets a fair bit of light pretty much all day, but especially in the morning. All right, I hope I kept that short and sweet. Let's actually go in and start looking at some of the plants. So this is the first little section that we're going to have a look at. So this one is probably one of the more recent plants in my collection. It is a variegated Micans, and I think it's just so beautiful. This one is my favorite leaf. This one here. Super gorgeous plant. It came to me in sphagnum moss, and as you can see, it is getting that really beautiful pink sun's dressing on it because of where it's sitting at the window. It gets a lot of bright light. This little cutie here is my Anthurium luxurians. I love the heart-shaped leaves and the texture of the beautiful leaves. It came to me as a very, very tiny plant. This was one of the original plant leaves, I think. So far it's been super easy. I find it quite thirsty, and I think that's just because it wants to be up potted more than I'm up potting it. And I'll show you why I think it wants to be up potted. And it's because of my other Anthurium over here. Isn't it stunning? So this one I bought at the exact same time, and they came in the same size pot, and I up potted this one a little bit faster. So the container is a lot bigger, as you can see. Don't worry, it is not sitting in water for long. I literally watered it yesterday. So this beautiful, beautiful plant is a mystery to me. It is a regal cross. I have no idea. It was sold to me as a pure regal. I started realizing it wasn't getting like shiny veins, like the regals have that really shiny veins, and it wasn't getting that distinction. Then I got an email from the seller saying, we made a mistake and some of our seedlings got mixed up. So we've sold you a regal cross. Happy to refund you. I hope it's still growing, that we've had some issues growing this particular cross. Mine seems to be growing okay. It could even be a regal. Like they said, some of them were regal, some of them weren't. And it was really, really early on. It was still really, really tiny. And I was like, oh, well, maybe it is a regal because it's growing. And they said that the ones that were the hybrids, most of the people have said that they've died pretty quickly after they got them. And then it got bigger and I was like, okay, it's definitely not a pure regal, but it's crossed with a regal and I don't know what. So if you look at this and you know, have a plant that's similar and you know what this might be crossed with, like let me know in the comments below. I'm pretty sure I could have probably asked, but I honestly assumed it was a regal, so I didn't bother to actually ask what it could be, but oh well. I love it all the same, and because I up potted it, I feel like it grew this massive leaf. Look at the difference between the previous leaf and then this one. Before repot, after repot. This beautiful plant here, I think, is some sort of trailing ficus. I could be completely wrong. I, again, am gonna put all the names of the plants that I can't remember on the bottom of the screen. I don't talk to people about my plants very much, so the names tend to sort of escape me, but they don't take me long to find. So long as I have access to the internet, I'll be able to figure out most of the time which plant I have fairly accurately. It has started to attach on the inside of the pot and it is actually rooting itself. I can take that out now. It is attaching its little roots to the inside of the pot and I keep trying to peel it out so that it doesn't get stuck. But yeah, even on the outside here, these are rooted onto the pot, like they are trying to climb and stick on the pot, like these are stuck. I don't want to pull them off. The ones that are on the outside that are sticking to the pot, I'm okay with that. I don't want the ones sticking on the inside. But it is definitely like a climbing, creeping plant. It wants to like suction onto something. So I've put a couple of these in my terrariums as well that I made recently. But I think it's just such a really interesting plant. I know a lot of people say that these are terrarium plants only, but again, I'm growing mine in the quote-unquote room humidity. This one is really hard to do justice just in this video. It is the blue oil slick fern. Maybe you can see that now. It's called the oil slick fern because of how like iridescent the blue can be, and I believe like the older the leaves, the bluer that sort of becomes. Does not like to sit in water. I know it's a fern, or it's like called an oil slick fern, but does not like a soggy bottom. In fact, no water left in the pot, thank God. So does not like to sit in water. I tend to get like gross yellow leaves if that happens. It does this delicious thing on the back, which is like the pollen that it produces. It's producing a lot of pollen at the moment because of the amount of light that it's getting. And most of the time, I tend to like wash the leaves because the pollen gets everywhere for one. Like it gets all over that table there. But I tend to wash it and like wash the water back into the pot, so like the pollen falls into the soil of the pot. And I found since I started doing that, I've had a lot of new baby shoots coming through on the plant. So I'm dropping soil all over my floor. So I think that is actually helping to stimulate its growth by like moving the pollen into the leaves and washing its leaves into the pot. Kind of like, I guess, what rain would do. Yeah. This one is one that I've made a comment on previously about how I can't pronounce its name. It kind of sounds like Kalamata olives to me. I think I heard someone say it the other day, and it was Hoya Kalamantan. I don't actually know if that's how you pronounce it. I think other people just go for it and they just say it how they think it is. So maybe that is correct, maybe it's not. But I think it's a Hoya Kalamantan. Kalamata olive, but it's very pretty. It was just like a 3-leaf little plant, and it has definitely shot up in growth this summer, but it's actually on a mushroom trellis, which I love so much. It's so heavy on one side that the mushroom is, if I hold this straight, like it's definitely on an angle at the moment. But this is a really cute trellis actually from Planty Peeps, which is a plant store, like a plant goodies company that I like buying from, and they have really cute mushroom things. You also might see in a lot of my pots like little mushrooms that I've like shoved into the soil, and also a lot of those come from Planty Peeps. Kalamata olive. This little cutie is one of the alocasias I have over in this corner. This one is just your typical black velvet. I find this one actually loves to get mealybugs. I've got quite a few mealybugs at this place purely because they're on my mango tree outside, and now they've started venturing their way into my collection, which I don't appreciate. But even in my old house where I didn't get a lot of mealybugs, this one got mealybugs. Never spider mites, never thrips, but mealybugs. I find it kind of disturbing. I don't quite know why it disturbs me. Mealybugs don't bother me as much as most pests do, unless it's in like a really small leafed Hoya that's quite full. Then mealybugs can be really irritating, but for the most part mealybugs don't bother me. This could be a really unpopular opinion. Are you ready for it? If I had to rank pests and how much they bothered me, I would say aphids at the very bottom, mealybugs above that, because like they're just like a little bit of isopropyl alcohol to dab them and they die and you're pretty much good. Scale, mainly because I have never had a really bad outbreak of scale. Whitefly, purely because like fungus gnats isn't even on the list. I genuinely don't have that many issues with fungus gnats, but whitefly annoys me to my core. So whitefly is pretty up there. Did I say spider mites previously? I think spider mites would have to be more annoying than whitefly. So spider mites is my next one. Thrips is my top tier. Thrips is the most damaging pest in my opinion. I find it spreads fastest out of all of the other pests. I used to get thrips all the time at my old house. I have not had thrips on any of my plants in my collection since I moved to this house, and an outbreak of thrips in my collection would probably send me into a mental breakdown. Let me know what like your ranking list would be. I probably have had flat mites and have never noticed, so I haven't put flat mites on my list because I'm oblivious. So I like to stay in my wonderland where I've never had flat mites before. Yeah. I don't love it. It's my variegated Adansonii. This was before I sort of realized that there were two kinds of variegated. There's more than two, but there's so many kinds of variegated Adansonii. There's the one that is much more structured, and it sort of presents more as a climbing plant, right? Closer internodal spacing, sort of thicker leaves, whiter variegation most of the time. And there's this one that presents more as a trailing plant than a climbing plant, longer internodal spacing, and tends to have a more yellow variegation. Now keep in mind, this is in the same window seal as the plant that is getting sun stressing. So you can't tell me that the yellowing is a light issue, which is what I have been told. And unless I'm putting this under the actual sun, it's not going to get any whiter. But it browns, like it browns, and I know people have said silica. Yes, I'm using silica, and I have been using silica for a while now. So much of it is constantly browning. It's yellowy, kind of looks sick and scraggly, and like, I don't know, I wouldn't look at that and be like, what a beautiful plant. I'm on the hunt for true white variegated Adansonii that is the shorter internodal spacing. This one over here is a beautiful plant you might have seen in my video on beginner plants for each genus, and this was my beginner plant for the trailing philodendron genus. And yeah, absolutely gorgeous. I cannot preach this plant enough. It is a philodendron Rio. I feel like I could walk down the aisle with this plant. I truly do. I think it is stunning. I think it is an easy care plant. And I think that if you haven't got one in your collection and you like white variegation like me, because you are not allowed to be a millennial and not like white variegated plants. I feel like that's a rule. Am I just saying all the unpopular opinions today? I don't know. Alrighty, so we've already done this little top section here. Those are all the ones we've spoken about. We're gonna move down. This one here, it doesn't look too happy, and the actual reason for that is because I absolutely refuse to up pot it, because I want to keep it in this location, so that's why it looks a little bit grumpy. But you can see there are new leaves coming in, so it can't be that angry with me. But it is a very full pot. That is an Alocasia sinuata. This cute plant here, I decided to sort of wrap it around the trolley and have it grow like that, which I really like, and it has actually helped it to mature its leaves. So as it's getting to the top here, you can see it has a much more mature leaf at the top. It's very cute. So this was a philodendron compostatum. That's a word. In the back here is a twinkle orchid. I'm a newbie to orchids, and I made a grave error, and I chopped off they're not peduncles, the stems that had the flowers on them, because they were spent and they looked wrinkly and they looked dead. So I chopped them off, and then I read very quickly afterwards that they can rebloom from the same stem. So you can see there's no blooms on this stem here for this general orchid. But I'm keeping the stem because apparently they can rebloom from it. So yeah, this is kind of my corner of disappointment and shame as I'm starting to learn about an entirely new genus, which is orchids. All right, moving down to the bottom here. This is just a pot of cuttings, essentially, for my for my Syngonium albo. So moving up here, it is quite hard to see this plant because of how close to the window it is. But this plant here is a Discoria discolor. And summer means that this plant is just loving its life. They're little tubers that grow in the soil. They go dormant over the winter, and then they sprout up these beautiful, beautiful leaves. This one is like literally wrapping itself into the curtain. It does not want to focus, but it's wrapping itself into the curtain, climbing all the way up, and is starting to wrap around my windowsill, which is intentional. I do want it to do that because it doesn't have any, if we look at this plant has roots. And so if you were to let it climb, it would actually start to attach these roots to your wall, which can do damage, right? This, if you look at its nodes, it does not have little roots coming out of its nodes. Makes it a bit difficult to propagate the plant. However, it does mean that if I let it climb, it's not going to do any damage to my wall, which has become my new favorite thing about this plant. The plant that you can see above this is actually my Hoya Bella. Oh, I think sadly we've missed most of the blooms, but you can see at the back here, probably the last of the blooms for a bit on this plant. Just keeps growing, will not stop growing on me. Absolutely stunning plant. This is my Anthurium vitiflorium. That's probably how you say it. And in the darkest corner in the back here is just a domino peace lily. And the plant I've been trying to move around this entire time is my Alocasia macrorhiza albo variegata, another one of my easy care plants that I mentioned. If you want an alocasia that's going to grow big for you fairly quickly and has beautiful variegation, this one's the one for you. And that's what it looks like most of the time when I've sort of pushed her into the corner because she was getting in my way. This next plant hanging in the center of my windowsill is a Peperomia scandens albo variegated. I actually grew this one from about 2 cuttings of someone's plant. It does tend to get like a little bit of a browning tip on its leaves. A little bit of mottled browning there. I'm pretty sure that's because since it's in a hanging pot, sometimes I tend to overwater it and it sits in water, but I'm actually surprised that for the most part it tolerates my negligent care. This one over here is a cutting of my much larger plant that's outside. So this is like your fern leaf cactus. It's like a jungle cactus of some kind. Beautiful fronds. But while it looks like a fern, it's actually quite a succulent-y plant and doesn't need as much light as most. I would say this is actually getting a fair bit of light and probably too much light, which is why its leaves are a little bit yellower. And it could tolerate going into a lower light space if I wanted to move it there. But I think it looks quite pretty here, so I don't really want to move it. This section behind me here is our actual living room. So these are the plants in our living room space. The other area is sort of by our front door. I would say they get more ambient light. They are only like a meter away from the other section that we were looking at. However, they sort of get a lot more indirect light. I would say the plant down at the bottom here would get some beams of direct light throughout the day, but for the most part, this is like some of my more lower light tolerant plants in this section here. All right, so moving in to get a closer look. On top of my cutie little strawberry, we have my Anthurium clarinervium, which was my first ever Anthurium. It has looked a lot more full and a lot more lush. It's still sort of adjusting to its new location, and I was overwatering it for a bit there, which is why it has a little moisture reader in it to stop me from overwatering it, because it is not on the same schedule as all the other plants, and I probably water it about half as much as I water everything else. This one over here is a Dieffenbachia reflector, which gets its name because of how shiny the leaves are. There's no light hitting it at the moment, so it doesn't look as reflecty, but I do find that these veins kind of look neon sometimes. Down below it is one of my pride and joy crawlers. I only have a few crawlers in my collection. I'm very selective because they take up so much space. But I feel this one is the Plougmanii. I'll try and put the correct one on the screen. However, I believe I've been told that what it was labeled as, once again, was incorrect. I got it from Bunnings, which was a mistake because Bunnings is so known for mislabeling their plants, so I'm not 100% sure what this plant is. This corner here sometimes will get some substitution of light from this guy here. I actually have no idea where I got this grow light from. I've had it since probably 2018. Might have even been earlier than that, but I've had it for a super duper long time. I don't know if it does anything, like I don't know if it actually is very helpful, but sometimes I put it on to make myself feel better. Begonia polka dot here, which I believe is a Begonia maculata, and a Anthera magnificum here. That is looking quite stunning. Up above the TV, you have a trailing micans. This one's not variegated. It's a little bit stringy right now because I had it in a much lower light area downstairs previously, and I've recently brought it up since we put the shelves in, but it is starting to fill back out and look quite beautiful. Over here, some jars of cuttings that we're going to ignore. And this plant, which we're also going to ignore because it is actually seen in part 1 of my plant tour, but I moved it pretty much directly after that video because I wanted a plant that needed low light to sit up in this corner above the TV. I have a cutesy little terrarium mushroom, most likely dying cutting. This one is a little philodendron cream splash. It was just like a single leaf cutting that is very, very slowly growing, and it's not getting a lot of light where it is currently, but I'm hoping it will start to trail soon. For this section here, I would probably say it's my most inconvenient location for plants, but right across from me is our beautiful window, so this area gets quite a lot of light, and the plants here, depending on the season, actually do get direct rays of light onto the leaves, so it is a walkway. We will start with one of my favorites, which is my Philodendron gloriosum white vein, and definitely a plant that I get a lot of comments on. I think it is such a beautiful plant. This one was a tissue culture, so if you look into it, you can see it is an utter mess of different stems. Just doesn't like to sit in water. Again, if there are any plants that you want some more care tips on, please let me know. I might make a video about it. This beautiful one here is one of my Monstera albos. The other one is in the plant room. This one I believe is a large form, but I'm not 100% sure, even though it is smaller than the one in the plant room. It has also recently been cut. It did make its way to the top of the pole, but I've chopped and propped it. So this next leaf looks like it has 3 fenestrations, so I think the chop and propping is working, and it is slowly getting more mature on this pole. Here I have a Calathea orbifolia, which is one of the only Calatheas I have in my collection. I have, I think, 2 in total. Then I have a trailing string of hearts and a million hearts variegata. This is my second one of this plant here, because I have one in my plant room as well. And this one here, I have a bigger one downstairs. You can see where I've chopped it and the new growth is, because the new growth comes in a little bit more yellow. This one here, I think, is some sort of schismatoglottis, but I'm not 100% sure. It was a assorted foliage from Bunnings, so give you a closer look, but I'm not quite sure. This one here, I'm very proud of. It is my Philodendron Soderoy. Like just huge, shiny, beautiful leaves. The Majestic is in the other room in part 1 of the tour. It doesn't compare, I think, to the original Soderoy. I really love this plant. And then this one that has been chopped 1,000 times is my Jose Bueno, Philodendron Jose Bueno. Honestly, yeah, I've chopped it far too many times. It is probably becoming problematic for this plant, how many times I've chopped and propped it, but it seems to be pretty resilient to it. And I love when they come in with the beautiful white, and then eventually it fades to this like yellowy green color. But that's this section. I've got a little jar of cuttings at the top there, and that is like a little milk jug. It has some water in it and some cuttings growing. So this is where my little record player stand is. This is the darkest corner of this entire area, so it gets a lot less light. In this corner here, you have a Dieffenbachia. I think this was the Jade. Surprisingly, even though it's got white variegation, it does not mind being in the corner. It doesn't grow, but it doesn't die. And we love a plant in a house full of plants that are getting way too big that doesn't grow, but doesn't die. Something to be said for it. We have some more cuttings. This one here is another one of my tassel ferns. Does it have a name on it? It does. Has a very confusing name on it. Phlegmaris tassel fern. Just a casual Phlegmaris tassel fern. Stunning. This is just your very typical bog standard heartleaf philodendron. And this is a miraculous ivy. Someone told me a while ago they've never seen someone keep an ivy alive in their collection. Well, here you go. It is just starting to die, but I have kept it alive for at least 3 months. So, you know, ivies are like flowers. Sometimes when you cut them and put them into your home, they're going to die, but that's okay because for a little bit of time, they look cute. This is a weird one, but we're only going to be here for a few minutes. Welcome to my pantry. My very bright pantry. We actually need to get rid of the window that's in the pantry because pantries actually are better if they're dark so your food doesn't go off, but tell that to the original owner of the house. This here is a philodendron islanii, and it is segregated from the rest of the plants for a very good reason. I did not have thrips when I moved to this new house. I managed to get rid of them all before I moved. I used to have a really bad thrip problem at my old house, and this one, when I bought it, had thrips. Very sadly. It needs to have 2 leaves that have not had thrips. It's had 3 leaves so far. 2 of them had thrips. This is the first one without thrips, so it needs to give me 1 more that doesn't have thrips, and I will believe it, and it will be allowed to come back into the collection. But for now, this is the only place where I can truly isolate a plant and it still gets light. For now. Eventually we're getting rid of this window. Alright, so at this point I'm just hunting for the last plants in my house that I haven't been able to show yet. There's only 1 plant in this room. We are in my study, in my computer room. This is my one and only desk plant. It has a light on it. That is a grow light. That I got from Plants in a Box. But that is my Syngonium frosted heart, and it seems to be growing okay. Alright, so for the front section of the house, we're going to try and keep it short and sweet. I'm talking a little bit quieter because I don't want to bother my neighbours. This one here is quite a massive monstera. You can see it's growing up this pole here, and it gets very, very bright morning light, like direct scorching hot light, which is why it has gotten so big. This one here is a Syngonium confetti. It's going to be hard to see a lot of these because of how bright it is outside. This one here is a silver dollar Tashidia. This little one here is my splendid, slowly growing up this pole. Its leaves are quite big. It's going to be windy out here, so I do apologize for that. Up the top here we have a brewer's tail, growing very slowly. This one I believe is a crimson, I think it's a crimson queen. White's on the outside if it's a crimson queen, like a crown. And then this one here is a monkey tail cactus. A little bit lower here, and we have a Ficus Benjamin, or Benjamina, I can't remember, something Benji. This is a Triangularis, Aurea variegated, and a very sad caladium. This one's a dart frog caladium. And this one here is a Ficus Taneki. It's a bit more yellow because it's gotten very sun stressed. If I put it in a little bit more of a lower light, it would probably get more white, which I think it's starting to get more white now that I've pulled it away from the stairs. So this is my south veranda, because it is the south facing veranda here. It gets southerly light and a little bit of western light. So western light is essentially where you are, southern light is from over here. And this is kind of like my plant corridor, my back door behind me here. It's going to be a little bit more windy. Might even pick it up and talk like this because I'm just worried about how much wind you're going to get, and I've lost the little covers that go on your mics to stop from getting the wind. So I'm really sorry about that, but you're going to hear the wind in these ones here. If it's really awful audio, I will maybe have to do a voiceover, but I'm gonna try and avoid that. But it's been a windy, miserable day, so I've picked an excellent time to record this video. So normally there is a ficus here, but I've recently taken it to my sister's place and I'm currently regrowing a ficus fiddly fig to go into this section here. So that's why this looks so sad and empty. Down here is a mixed pot of two different caladiums. One has like a more yellow green and one has a darker green outside. This one here I believe is called a fire stick plant. It was not for $30. That is just a random pot that I've potted it into. It's taken from cuttings. This is my much bigger fern leaf cactus. It is definitely a monstrous looking plant. Here we have a string of turtles. Over here is a trailing jade plant. This one here is a Hoya Hindu rope. It's very hard to see. And it is obviously the variegated one. Couldn't get this one to grow inside. It had to be an outdoor plant for it to grow. And you can see we've got like the clear roof here, so it's getting quite a lot of light. This is a mystery fern. Plucked it from a piece of cement at work. Seems to be growing well. This one here is another, plucked it from my mum's garden plant. I don't know much about my succulents, unfortunately. I do know that it's growing. This is another piece of trailing jade and a plant left behind by the previous owners, which I believe is a Christmas cactus. This here was meant to be like a beautiful lush pot of trailing plants, but only really these ones have started to grow. So like your ruby cascade and your general like string of beans. My variegated string of hearts and chain of hearts is starting to grow, but very slowly. A lot of the like dischidias that I put in here are not growing, so not as lush as I wanted it to be. But you know, from the back side it actually looks like it's growing quite well. It's just nothing at the front. General little variegated cactus down here. Looking over at this wall here, we're going to start all the way at the back with my beautiful Thai constellation. 2 stems inside of this pot, and it is growing up a big stick instead of getting like a moss pole. This is my euphorbia. I think it's the white ghost variegated one. The white variegated one recently repotted and pulled it away from the sun because it was getting a little bit burnt at one stage. This one here is my varicosum. It definitely is like, if you can see, it's like pulling towards the light from the west. This is the western direction, so it's definitely turning to get that westerly light. And doesn't look quite as happy as I want it to at the moment, but it's getting some really big leaves, so I think it's just the direction of the light that's making it look so odd. Yeah, this one here is my Hoya Meredithii. Fairly new to my collection as well. It has massive leaves, and you can see it's growing quite a long stem. The leaves will come in soon. They're just so tiny that you can't see them, but they are there. This one is a Dischidia hirsuta. Not quite sure how to say that, but you can see it's got these tiny little yellow blooms, which I think are just gorgeous, and it sun stresses to this really gorgeous like purpley pink color. It is currently trying to attach itself to my roof, which I'm probably gonna let it, to be honest with you. This is my Amedria medium, just your green, not your silver one, just your plain green. I find it doesn't really grow that well inside, so that's why I've got an outdoor version of it, and it seems to be much happier. Sorry guys, it is getting a bit windy, so I'm going to try and speed it up while we're out here. This one here is my Philodendron Milano Chrysum. Finally growing big for me now that I've taken it outside. That was my hand for comparison, but I have my mic in my hand, so I couldn't talk. And then beside it is your Cerestis mirabilis. It doesn't like how much light it's getting here. It definitely needs to be in an area that's getting less light, but I'm running out of space. So here it lives. Another random succulent, not to be named. A Mickey Mouse Xanthosoma. I think this is sold as an alocasia a lot, but it is definitely not. It is a Xanthosoma. Beautiful little white variegation. That is not it being sick, that's just how it grows, which is why it's called a little Mickey Mouse. Down all the way at the bottom there. This is just your Adansonii, just your regular. It's growing okay. It's not stunningly happy, but it's not dying. It's another one of those ones where it's just, you know, living its best life. It doesn't want to be in as bright as light as it is, but don't have many other places to put it. This one here is my partner's plant. It's, I believe, a maple tree that he wants to eventually bonsai, so he's letting it grow out to bonsai it. It's getting crunchy ends of the leaves, but I am letting him take care of it however he wishes to. But it's, yeah, growing very wild and unkept, so we don't speak about that plant. That one's been ashamed from our family, so moving on. On this side here, we have another, who are you? You're a cutting from a random family member. But it is very cool. I believe it's a different Bachia of some kind. This one here has an odd name. Crinum variegated. Not a clue. But I don't think that I can get a variegated banana tree in Australia. I think there's some laws about it. I'm not 100% sure, but this is my like replacement for a banana tree essentially. This is an anthurium. I believe it's a bird's nest anthurium or a hookeri. Yeah, I think it's a hookeri anthurium variegated. This one is your variegated spiral ginger plant. It's given that name because it spirals up. I don't know if you can see. This one's probably the... none of mine really spiral properly. They more just grow wacky, don't they? This one's growing completely and utterly straight, which is not its namesake. But if you look at the stems, they are intended to spiral. Mine like attempts to spiral, but doesn't really. It still looks really cool though. This one here has always been given the name Happy Plant to me. I'm not 100% sure what its name actually is, but it is another Dracaena. Really thick cane Dracaena. Yet another Jose Bueno plant that I have. Growing up a stick here. Not as variegated as some of my other ones, but it might get more variegated now that I've popped it outside. All right, we are in our very last section of the tour. This is my west veranda, so my actual back veranda. Thank you, Queensland, for giving us ample deckage, a lot of veranda for me, which is quite lovely. But not a heap of plants, as you can see. That is mainly to do with the fact that it is just sweltering hot, like unbelievably filthy dirty hot on this veranda, and it can be kind of unbearable for a lot of the plants out here. So the plants I've chosen are either because they are a sacrifice or because they enjoy the brighter light, but most of them are sacrifices. So let's go have a look at some of the plants that I care the least about. Start with the plant that I think is the coolest plant on the veranda, even though its leaves don't look that cool. When it eventually grows flowers, they look like wisteria flowers, except they're kind of like alien heady and they're blue. So if I can think of it, I'll chuck a photo in. They are so pretty. And so I eventually want to grow this all the way up the wall and then start it to like trail along the lights here and like crawl along the top here. So that's my goal for this eventually, because I think it's just a really cool plant. A pot of succulents and Dracaena or snake plants. They got categorized as Dracaenas. I think this is like called the silver tongue. Looking towards the back, you see my paint swatches there? Let me know what color you think is prettiest. We want to repaint the house, so choices. Over here, 2 beautiful ZZ plants. One of them is mine, one of them is not. This one is my friend's that I have been trying to keep alive for her. This one is mine. That I had in a super low light space inside and then brought outside and immediately burnt. So, you know, again, as I said, sacrifices. This one here looks very ugly right now, but I am trying to train it to do like more of a cascading look where like the leaves will come over and cascade down. It has these beautiful red like bell-shaped flowers that are really pretty, and I'm trying to train it to do something cool. It doesn't look that cool right now, but I am trying to branch out, pun intended, and do something really cool. Same unfortunately with this very sad plant. This is called a Chinese lantern plant because of its like little lanterny flowers. This unfortunately has just, it's lost a lot of leaves. It was too bright here. It got white fly, got spider mites, it got a weird mold. Yeah, it's not doing well. I think like flowering plants is just like a completely different beast to indoor plants, and I'm slowly trying to teach myself how to take care of them properly. This one here is a Peperomia Emerald Isle, or like I think it's sometimes called like a sprinkles plant. This one lost all of its leaves during the winter and has regrown them back slowly, but it had an issue with drying out on this veranda as well because it's so hot, but it is slowly coming back to life. This one on the table here is just your little Chinese money plant, or it's also known as like a friendship plant, because it grows, so you can see in the soil, it grows so many little pups, and then you can take these pups and give them to your friends, and then they can have the plant and grow the plant, and then they get pups and you share it on, and that's why it's called the friendship plant, because you can just keep sharing it. There is a Hoya that's above this couch here. This one here is a Satsuma plant. You can see it's got tiny little fruits on it at the moment. They're super sour. My partner bought this particular one because there's a sweeter version of it, but he wanted the super sour one because he wanted to make jam. He has yet to make jam out of it, but it still is a very cute plant to have. This one unfortunately had mealies, but it is an apple tree, and I know what you're thinking. I'm in Australia and it's summer and it's an apple tree. What's going on? It's like a summer apple tree. So it's a dwarf tropic sweet, and it actually gives me apples in November to March. Around summertime is when it actually gives you apples, instead of in other countries where apples come in winter. Over here is another euphorbia. It's just your general green euphorbia. This is a sweet potato plant. A little bit of a syngonium mixed pot for you. It's your general green here. There is, there we go. There is some batik in here as well. Hidden in between, you'll find some batik leaves, and it's also growing up a big chunk of wood. This is the like lauren snake plant, lauren, and another one of those like sweet potato vines. And as you can see, it loses a lot of leaves. It gets really crunchy. It's just too bright here. But I want plants on it, so again, sacrifices. All right, foliage family, that is the end of part 2. Still part 3 to come, which is all of the plants that are in the downstairs area of my house. There's more philodendron, monstera, Hoya, so many, but mainly caladiums. I have a lot of caladiums in my downstairs collection as well. And I like to think downstairs also has a bit more of like a cottage sort of vibe to it. It is like unrenovated and unpainted, so it does have a lot of like an older feel to the house downstairs as well. But if you have any questions about any of the plants or want to go into more detail on any of the plants, please let me know in the comments below. If you've watched the video the whole way through or you've enjoyed this video, please take a second to like my video or subscribe to my channel for more of my videos. It really helps me out as I'm starting to grow my channel. I really, really do appreciate it if you could take that second to like the video or share it with other people that might be interested in watching a very long plant tour. Some other videos that I currently have in the works as well is a terrarium making video, and I am hoping to eventually start making a video on my alocasia collection specifically and some of their care requirements. As for those that have been sort of curious about my schedule for filming and uploading videos, I am looking at probably bumping it back to one video every 2 weeks, potentially at busy times that might be one video a month. I have a full-time other job, so it makes it pretty hard to film big videos, but I might try and give myself some grace and make some smaller videos so that I can keep to more of a schedule for you guys, making it a bit more consistent. But I'm planning on uploading, I think, Friday afternoons every 2 weeks. And if you want to know when I'm uploading, or if I've uploaded a video, you can either turn on the bell, or I will also be posting a reel on my Instagram page to say that I've also uploaded a YouTube video so that you guys know when I've uploaded. But that is it for today. It has been a much cooler day than my previous plant videos, so I am very thankful because I am not as sweaty as I usually leave my videos. I hope you have all had a wonderful start to the new year as we're coming towards the end of January for me. Potentially this is being uploaded more towards February, but I hope you are all having a fantastic 2025 and that you make this year everything that you want it to be. See you guys in the next one.